Welcome to Dark as You Like. Step carefully, breathe slow. The dark is patient and it listens. Tonight we will open the first page of something new, a catalog of creatures that stalk myth and memory alike. We'll call it Monsters vs. Cryptid, a field guide for the strange and the sinister, a place where folklore meets modern fear. The legends might still leave tracks behind them. See, there's a difference between monsters and cryptids. Monsters are the things we invent to explain what we dread. Shadows with teeth, rage given form. Cryptids, though, they live between sightings and stories. Beasts whispered around, firelights, glimpsed from the corner of the eyes. They are belief made physical, doubt dressed in fur and bone. To start, we will be talking about goblins. You might think you know them, little green men with sharp teeth and nasty attitudes. But the truth is, more than just that. The word goblin slithers into English form from the Old French goblin, but the show doesn't end there. Further back, it actually comes from a Latin gobelinus. I do apologize if I pronounce that wrong. A name whispered in the medieval monasteries to explain the invisible things that pinch and push and creak through the night. But even that might be disguised, because the goblin, it's not a creature, it's a type. A role played by countless beings across centuries and continents. In truth, goblin is a label we slap on whatever we don't quite understand. Small, wild, clever things. Things that laugh when we're afraid, and sometimes because we are. Some stories say goblins are the spirits of the restless dead, twisted by envy and hunger. Others say they are fey creatures cast out by their kin, or demons that never earned their wings. You'll find their kin in every culture. Tonight, we'll actually examine 3 of their many faces. Hobgoblins, redcaps, and pugwudgies, which I am probably pronouncing improperly, so I do apologize. Each of them have their own shape, their own rules, and their own price. Goblins are definitely not one kind of creature. They're a warning, and they've been watching us for a long time. Starting out with hobgoblins. Don't be fooled by the name. Hobgoblins aren't just miniature pranksters in pointed hats. They're old, ancient spirits of the home. Quiet tenants in the walls, the beams, and the floorboard. In English and Scottish folklore, they come out at night, not to scare you, but to help. If your house feels oddly tidy one morning, if your shoes are lined up, your hearth swept, or things that you forget appear exactly where you need them, you might owe your thanks to one of them. But goblins, they're not servants. They need some kind of, reward, like offer them cream, bread, or a warm hearth, and they'll remain. Offer them any kind of sweet, really. However, if you offend them, as in like mock their work, deny their offering, they may turn. They'll become something terrifying, very cruel, chaotic. Things will vanish. Your milk will even spoil. Children will cry at shadows in the corner, and they can't be driven out easily. Some say the only solution is to abandon your home. Imagine something like that living inside your house and somehow you offend it. Now you got this little evil creature that once was making everything so tidy, destroying, wrecking, and maybe even attacking you sometimes. Huh. Unfortunate. Now we're going to venture on red caps. So basically, if hobgoblins are the spirits of the hearth, red caps are a whole different thing. Unlike the hobgoblins that have a good side, red caps are just born of violence. They are hauntings that follow bloodshed. They're the residue of cruelty left behind when history collapsed. Found in crumbling castles, red caps are short, thick-limbed creatures, grotesquely strong, skin like stone, eyes like burning coals, iron boots stomping down corridors no humans has walked in centuries. Their name is no metaphor. They wear caps soaked in blood, not dyed, fresh. They must redip their hats constantly, or they will begin to fade, weaken, vanish. So, how do they get the blood? Well, obviously they have to kill to survive. So we come from a hobgoblin, which is a creature that, as long as you treat it right, will take care of you, to now something that has to kill, destroy, just to live. Imagine. The third one we'll be talking about is honestly one of my favorite ones. The Puck Woodgies. And I do apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrect. However, these are folklore of Native Americans. It roughly translates to little person of the wilderness. You know, goblins are little, humanoid at most. These creatures were once a friend to humanity. However, they got really jealous of the relationship between a giant and the humans. So, because of this jealousy, they grew bitter. And with that bitterness became venom. They are small, about 2 to 3 feet tall, with gray stone-like skin. Just like the red caps, we're seeing more of a gray tendency versus as the normal green is big-eared creatures that we see in media and literature. However, unlike the red caps, they are often covered in quills or spines. They seem to do anything and everything to harm anything that's a human. They'll fire poison darts. They'll twist your mind. They can even make you believe that you're safe, loved, and then they'll lead you to a cliff. Honestly, even though the red caps are known just to kill, I'd say this is probably one of the most dangerous out of all three. They do not forgive, nor do they forget. And these creatures, if they mark you, they won't stop. It's quite terrifying to think that if one day you're just walking, minding your business, and this porcupine-like humanoid just deems you a problem, and he's gonna track you down, find a way to hurt you. But on that note, that does finish the topic of those three individual goblins or creatures that represent or are like goblin like. Um, and at the end, I want to talk about an experience I had that I believe that I witnessed something goblin like. It was a warm day hiking in the woods. These woods are known for creepy stories all the time. However, I grew up in these woods, so it's just one of these normal hikes. However, I decided to take a path that I really never have. So, these woods have a railroad system that goes through it, but it was burnt down long before I was even born. Um, so I took this, usually it's covered in a bunch of grass and just shrubbery and stuff like that. So it's usually really hard to get through. However, there was like a weirdly path. There was a path, yeah. Um, and I remember just going down it. But the whole time I was walking down the path, I felt like I was being watched. My flight or fight was like active, and I didn't know either I should fight something or run. But I ignored it, and a little ways down there was this tree that caught my attention. It was a weird looking tree, dark, like it was burnt. It was about as dark as the burnt railroad, honestly. It looked like those typical trees you'd see in like scary movies where like a monster would come out of it. I remember just staring at it, thinking something is gonna crawl out of it and come at me. I just couldn't stop staring. And once I did stop staring, that feeling of being watched was worse. As if it was just behind me, something lurking, waiting to pounce on me. So what did I do? I kept going down that trail. And probably a good 50 feet, maybe if not more, there was this little embankment, a nice little creek. I decided to go down there for some odd reason. I mean, it was beautiful. That's the whole reason why to be in nature, because it's beautiful. I was looking around and I noticed something in the sand. Well, mixture of mud and sand. It was like, because there was footprints of all different things, like raccoons, deer, even squirrels. However, there was one footprint that kind of stood out. There was like, basically like tiny shoes. And it only went one way, and it was through the water. What I mean by that is you see as if it walked through the water and didn't like turn around. It was weird. And while I was just looking at this, a rush of cold air basically knocked me out. I mean, it didn't like put me on my, back or anything. It just, feeling it felt like someone punched me. And I remember having that same feeling I did when I looked at the tree. Fear. I was scanning everything. Maybe there was someone nearby. I looked up because there was this little high spot because I was more of the lower area. And I was scanning just scanning everything. And I see something, which I still try to convince myself it was just a stump. It had to be a stump, you know? Could it be a stump? I just remember staring at it, trying to think all logic, trying not to scare myself. It felt like it was staring back at me, my body trembling. I just stared. I felt paralyzed. What seemed like eternity was just probably about 5 or so minutes. I was able to get my ground. And I remember running. I ran. But even though I was running, I still made sure to look at that tree. It seemed to be darker, which made me run even more and more. See what I saw, why I say I thought it was a stump, because it was no more than 3 feet tall, if even that. But it was like if something was hunched over. It blended in really well. Like, just passing by, you would think it was a tree stump. Nothing else, nothing more. I got out, got to my truck, sped off. Well, a couple days later, I decided to go back. Well, I went on this different trail, and this trail led me up to that little high place. I looked down that creek I was at not too long ago. And I think that was one of the most scariest moments ever, because the same spot that I thought was a tree stump was nothing there. Nothing. I still get goosebumps. It still scares me thinking about it. I haven't really been in the woods since. And the worst part about it is when I realized that there wasn't a stump at that spot that I thought, hoped it was no more than a stump. That same creepy feeling of being watched pulsated through me. I felt sick. And I just remember turning around and going back to my truck. Like I said, I haven't really been back since. So I don't know if it was something else or a goblin-like creature, but I know what I saw wasn't a stump. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this little bit. I do want to apologize. The more time it goes on, the better it will be. This might be one of my worst episodes. Who knows? I definitely think the next one I will talk about will be relating to a certain group of witches, Native American witches. Because go figure, I have something that relates to that. However, this is Dark as You Like. I hope you have a wonderful evening and even a better night.